Everything begins at the Yi Mansion. Our protagonist, named Xian, transmigrated from the modern world. At this moment, he has just discovered the story of the guy whose body he took over. This person is the illegitimate son of the head of the Yi family and is weak and cowardly. He grew up without a mother, is humiliated by the entire family, and the worst part is that in this place, martial strength is the most valued thing. Since he has no talent at all, he obviously suffers from bullying. Then a guy places a hand on his shoulder and asks what the bastard is doing there. Apparently, he should be looking for the mother he doesn't have. 3 more appear, saying that maybe his mother is abandoned on the streets, while another one is sure she's in a brothel. Man, these guys just show up out of nowhere to humiliate him, and our boy Xian tells them to shut up. One of them is surprised by his aggressiveness because normally the boy is much more cowardly than this, but today he was brave. Xian then says that apparently they have dirty ears, so he repeats himself. Slowly, he tells them once again to shut up. Obviously, the guys lose their patience right away and grab him by the collar, saying he seems eager to receive a little lesson. While being shaken, our boy wants to fight back, but he's way too weak, until someone asks what they're doing. A girl points at them and says that the boy is still the son of the head of the family, so they should stop doing that. Her name was Yi Qinfeng. One of the guys whispers in the other's ear, saying that the madam really likes what this girl cooks, so it's best not to cause too much trouble. They throw our boy to the ground and walk away, saying he got lucky, but the next time they find him, he'll get beaten up. Qinfeng then comes over to help our boy up, asking if he's okay. Seeing the boy's memories, our protagonist remembers that she was the only person who treated him well. As soon as he takes her hand, the female daily life skills system activates. Being a good reincarnator, he's not even surprised since he received a pretty common system. The message says he can recruit female disciples, and the more they improve their daily life skills, the stronger he becomes. At this moment, he can have only one disciple. He's a bit surprised since he's never heard of a system like this before. Meanwhile, Yi Qinfeng is wondering where this fool is staring. Looking at her, he realizes that if he needs a female disciple, she's the perfect choice. He then asks if she wants to be his disciple, to which she obviously tells him to stop talking nonsense. However, with a smirk, she says that if it makes him feel better, he can consider her his disciple. She waves goodbye, saying she's going back to the kitchen. She didn't seem very serious about it, but the important thing is that the disciple was recruited with a cooking skill. With that, the first reward is unlocking a natural talent, and the moment she starts cooking eggs, he starts earning points. Back in the kitchen, a woman tells her to hurry up and take these boiled eggs. She runs off and our boy is there, gaining another experience point, then another. She chops the carrots, prepares the lettuce, and cooks food for everyone. The guys say she's an idiot, doing the work of 3 people but getting paid for only 1. Meanwhile, our boy is behind the wall, gaining experience, and even her cooking skill has leveled up. Seeing that he has reached the initial level of the talent, he's already praying that this girl keeps cooking a lot. He's going to make sure she cooks for the entire city. Then the system says he has to choose a daily life skill. It could be forging, medicine, architecture, and many others. He realizes that in this combat-heavy world, as long as it's not fighting, it's considered just an ordinary skill. So now he's sitting there fishing. That's what he chose. However, even with the system's little skill boost, it wasn't easy at all. Until finally the water shakes and he's sure something grabbed the hook, so he pulls. The big fish leaps out of the water, he goes to grab it, but just at that moment, someone screams for help, and the fish smacks him in the face. Annoyed, he turns around, wondering who's screaming for help at a time like this. But the scream seems mixed with crying. In a nearby house, someone is being thrown against the wall. Damn, what's this? You're king our cook? Don't do that. It's the same guy from before who was provoking Xian, saying this is the price she pays for getting involved in that situation. He raises his big hand, saying that now she'll have to put in some service. But before he can do anything, he takes a flying kick to the face and gets sent straight through the window. Our boy arrived in style, and now, thanks to all that cooking experience, he's a bit stronger. The guys call him a bastard for attacking their boss so suddenly. Meanwhile, Xian is more impressed by the fact that eating those eggs really made him stronger. One of them then goes for an elbow strike, saying Xian made a mistake by turning his back. But these poor guys who weren't that strong to begin with now don't stand a chance against our boy. Just as he dodges the first attack, another guy comes in with a kick, saying not to go easy on him just because he's the chief's son. While another one from the left is coming in with an elbow strike, both of them are mid-air and our boy just takes a step back, making them crash into each other like idiots. One guy's foot lands on the other's face and Xian delivers a solid kick right to the other's groin. Damn, this guy doesn't hold back. The poor dude is left trembling on the ground. Obviously, they run away, warning that he'll pay for this. Then someone behind him asks if he really is the Xian she knows. It's Qinfeng, her face red like a tomato, trying to understand how he suddenly became strong enough to fight those guys. That's when she comes to a conclusion and remembers the moment he asked her to be his disciple. And now she's certain that he awakened his talents a few days ago. Already impressed by such rapid growth, she knows he must have some rare talent. The girl immediately drops to her knees, thanking him and apologizing for doubting him. He extends his hand and tells her to get up since she's always been helping him. Walking with her, he learns that those born without a talent root usually don't progress, which is why his situation is unusual. She says it's incredible how a loser like him, who wasted 20 years of life and was considered trash by everyone, finally managed to awaken something. He smiles, not sure whether he should say thanks. Upon entering the Yi mansion, someone pulls her ear. It's Butler Zhang, and she asks him to go easy on her. However, the man says that it seems she deserves some pain since she's causing trouble. Must be thinking too highly of herself just because she cooks. At that moment, our boy grabs his arm and asks who gave him permission to harm his disciple. Then someone else speaks up, saying he's getting quite bold. It's a lady of the mansion named Liu Shi, who says that causing problems outside wasn't enough. Now he's causing them inside too. But Xiu Xian simply says it's the butler's fault since he tried to hurt Qinfeng. The woman tells him to stop talking back while others demand that he be expelled from the mansion. Then a man named Yi Ba steps forward and says that a useless person like him is just leeching off the mansion's resources and should have been kicked out long ago. He's Liu Shi's son, and she announces that for the next 3 months, it will go without wages until the master returns. The butler, however, is still furious, saying this punishment is too light for that bastard. Later, behind the windows, Yu Bei tells his mother they need to get rid of that brat quickly, especially since he's heard rumors that he's getting a little stronger. His mother reminds him that it's impossible to awaken talent in this city, so he must have just learned some half-baked technique, and they'll put an end to it soon. After all, they had gone through all that trouble to make sure he drowned, yet somehow he seemed to have come back to life. The next morning, everyone gathers in front of the mansion, wondering why they're all standing there. One of the men explains that the new girl will be handling all the mansion's cooking. In the kitchen, Qinfeng stands with her arms spread. Man, this girl is practically breathing fire as she prepares to cut the fish. She unleashes a flurry of precise strikes, and the others are startled by the deadly intent behind her movements. Meanwhile, Xiu Xian gains experience and discovers she has advanced to the apprentice level. He also unlocks the ability to have one more disciple and a new talent, Iron Stomach, which lets him gain attributes from eating. Checking the system, he's shocked by how fast everything is progressing. Not to mention, he just got a talent that grants skills from eating. Next scene, he heads to the bookstore. Rousing around, one of the staff members approaches and asks how he can assist young Master Xiu. Our boy says he wants the most powerful technique, but the man knows very well that Xiu Xian has no talent at all. So why is he even asking for that? He then glances at a girl in the back and tells her to bring out a beginner's technique. This beautiful young woman's name is Liu Yunshu, and I can already imagine she'll become one of our boy's workers. She brings out the beginner's technique, but of course Xiu Xian complains, saying he asked for the strongest one. However, the girl tells him that if he manages to master that one in 5 years, he'd be considered lucky. Then, out of nowhere, he places 3 coins on the counter. The store clerk's expression immediately changes as he declares that this is no way to speak to young Master Xiu. Looks like it's time to fetch a powerful technique for real. The girl goes to retrieve the book, muttering that she's never seen someone so incompetent yet so ambitious. She hands over the book and tells him that if he manages to master it in this lifetime, he should come find her. She'll plant bananas on his head and wash her hair in the streets. Our boy tells her to keep her word because the store owner just heard everything. As she says she'll be waiting a lifetime, our boy starts stalling, saying he's going to take care of it right now. The sly guy has 1,000 kili and is literally going to use his eating talent to consume the book. The two in the shop are shocked, but it's too late. He's already swallowed it whole. He turns around giving a thumbs up, but then the nausea hits. That's when his body starts smoking. A blue aura expands and his body appears to be strengthening. Books fly off the shelves and in an instant, he disappears, already sprinting across the hall. Jumping from rooftop to rooftop, he can't comprehend how he suddenly became this fast. Before he knows it, he's back in front of her, while the store clerk exclaims that this is impossible. He remembers that even the most powerful ancestors took years to learn this technique. Right then, the girl admits defeat. In the next scene, a bucket is placed on the ground and she's washing her hair in the street. At least she keeps her promises. Word spreads outside. Everyone's talking about the bet and the claim that the boy learned a royal tier technique. They think it's impossible until our boy walks up to her and says that's enough. He then asks if she has any special skills or hobbies. The girl is confused by such a sudden question. She replies that she's not a martial artist but likes writing and painting. Our boy tells her those are great talents and instructs her to become his disciple. She agrees but asks if he'll teach her martial arts. He says not for now, just keep focusing on writing and painting. Poor Yunshu is left thinking this boy is really strange. But of course, he just secured another disciple specializing in calligraphy. Besides that, he grabbed more books, but there's a cooldown on his ability. I have to admit, I wouldn't have been smart enough to come up with a way to cheat the system like this sneaky brat. And there he is, swallowing another book. When suddenly, the Kung Fu Panda tiger appears behind him. An explosion goes off in the nearby mountain. The ones responsible for this plan were likely watching. The guy with the purple mustache isn't happy about using a demon, but the other one says it doesn't matter since the kid is dead. Until Xiu Xian appears behind him, asking who exactly is dead. The two step back, trying to figure out how this bastard is still alive without a single scratch. One of them asks the other if he's really sure this kid has no talent at all. The one in red is Yu Ba, the son of the woman from the mansion. Our boy says he knows they tried to drown him recently, and he must have had something to do with it. Yuba starts trembling and then demands to know what happened to the demon and why it wasn't attacking. Looking to the side, he sees the demon's body lying there, but its head is missing. At that moment, the purple-mustached man, Chen, rushes in for a punch, saying they'll have to handle this personally. But Xian dodges effortlessly and says that at the very least, there'll be good experience points. The guy is convinced that since the boy only awakened recently, there's no way he can lose. But our protagonist blocks his attack with his arm, elbows him, and lands a solid hit right in the guy's face. That single blow sends the man flying through the forest. He can't comprehend how a kid who was literal trash just a short while ago suddenly has so much power. The fool is crawling away while our boy simply remarks that it looks like those books he ate were well absorbed. Ken has already realized that if he doesn't get out of here, he's going to die. He gathers his energy and leaps away, trying to escape the forest. For a second, he looks back and sees that the kid is far away, so at least he won't die. But the next second, Shayan's already behind him, asking where he thinks he's going. He grabs his face and slams him into the ground. The guy realizes that he has no way out now. Ken knows he won't make it and starts begging the young hero for mercy. He warns that he's an official of this place, so if he's killed, Cheyenne will get himself into trouble. Shayan admits that this isn't something he wants to deal with. He vanishes and the guy breathes a sigh of relief, thinking the boy ran away. But then the brat is back, now holding the demon's claws. He tells him that being an official doesn't matter when he conspired with that dog Yibo to commit murder. He deserves death. The guy tries to plead for time, but it's already too late. Back at the mansion, Yibo says he had a bad feeling and had to flee. He glances to the side and sees our boy walking by unharmed, who just shoots him a look, his system already at level 4. The fool trembles and his mother scolds him, saying he's a disgrace for stealing the boy's talent and still being behind him. Yiba, however, says she doesn't need to worry because Xu Xian will be reported to the government and executed. Man, either it's been a few hours since it happened or news in this place travels way too fast. Because his mother tells him not to count on that. She heard the body had claw marks, so they'll probably say he was killed by a demon. The real problem is that now they're certain he's awakened, even though it should be impossible. Meanwhile, our boy is sitting on some steps, fishing for a fish in a bowl. He's exploiting the system because even doing something this ridiculous, he still earns experience. He pulls up the little fish and gains another 4 points from it. Some people have started hearing rumors that he's been buying fish at the market and fishing them out of his own bowl. Yuba asks if the guy is sure about that, and the man confirms it. He never let the boy out of his sight for a second. Yuba is getting more furious than ever, trying to understand why he, who trains seriously, isn't progressing, while the guy fishing from his own bowl won't stop getting stronger. Until suddenly, our boy levels up his fishing skill to apprentice level, and now he has to go to places with higher quality fish. Just then, someone unexpectedly brings him a letter. For a second, he wonders if it might be from a secret admirer, but it turns out to be about the selection for the Demon Suppression Division. Apparently, the guy Xuexian killed belonged to this association, and he knows they must hate him now. Sometime later, Qinfeng tells him the selection is coming up, so why does he look like he's just relaxing all the time? But he responds that for someone like him who was always looked down on, this so-called opportunity is just a joke. She agrees but still wants to know why he keeps waving his hands in the air like an idiot. This boy doesn't even try to hide when he's using the system. He explains that he has no idea what kind of opponents he'll be facing, but is preparing just in case. Qinfeng has leveled up so much as a cook that now he needs to teach her exotic cuisine. Once he teaches her, the food she makes will start carrying energy and making people stronger. The protagonist finds it strange since he has no idea how he's supposed to teach her that. But no need to worry, the system provides a skill point that he can pass on. And once again, he doesn't even try to hide it. He just places his hand on her forehead like it's nothing. With that, she developed exotic cuisine. And with her tomato red face, she wants to know why he's touching her forehead like that. But suddenly, her eyes change expression and countless spiritual food recipes appear in her mind. She immediately dashes off, shouting that new recipes just popped into her head and she has to try them out right now. At the same time Yunshu had leveled up her writing and painting, our boy is realizing that these girls work hard. On top of that, he unlocks a subspace where his disciples can store things for him to retrieve later. Being the chatterbox that he is, he explains everything to them and sends them both back to work. They just thank him and get right back to it. Yunshu, however, finds it odd that he left empty-handed, to which Qinfeng responds that apparently he's storing things in some kind of subspace, though she has no idea what that even means. The scene then shifts to the entrance of the Demon Suppression Division. The guard at the door tells him to hand over his recommendation letter, and after reading it, he asks if he's the infamous Xu Xian. As soon as our boy confirms, he immediately feels a murderous intent, and all the men around know that this is the bastard who killed old Chen, the illegitimate son of the Yi family who cannot be allowed to leave this place alive. Our protagonist knows this is Yi Ba and his mother's scheme, and unfortunately, it worked far too well, as he's now the target of everyone here. That's when someone announces that Master Lion has arrived. A man in a purple robe walks through the crowd, while our boy wonders who he is. Someone next to him remarks that it must be his first time here. A guy named Wu Chengen explains that Lion trained for much less time than most people, but is already far stronger. Our protagonist comments that it looks like he's playing the role of the narrator. Then, Lion is about to say something about his family's reputation when another guy appears and kicks him aside. Our boy asks who that is, and the man explains that last year, he was the grand prodigy. And Kian is excited, thinking that if he gets another demon core this year, he'll advance to the next realm. That's when a giant bald man, nearly 3 meters tall, tells him to move aside. He takes a glance back and instantly steps to the side, letting the guy pass without issue. Our protagonist remarks that another person has arrived to humiliate him and asks who this one is. Wu Chang'an explains that this guy is from the Northern family and has been the most promising disciple in the past decade. Last year, in the Demon Cave, he was unstoppable. But then the bald guy hears someone announce the arrival of Miss Zhao. A figure surrounded by a dark aura approaches and people start wondering if a demon is about to enter. Man, this looks more like a beast, and Xu Xian can feel the overwhelming pressure. Wu Chang'an, who's standing beside him, just wants to go home. The girl is riding none other than a third-realm white tiger. Her name is Zhao Yuhui, and she's the heir of the family. People are running for their lives in a panic. The tiger sniffs at the northern bald guy, who is visibly shaking. And as they pass, the poor man collapses to the ground. Our boy knows this white tiger is 10 times stronger than the one he fought before. He then asks his explainer who this girl is and how she can control a beast like that. Fulfilling his role, the guy explains that the Zhao bloodline has an ability that allows them to control rare beasts in this world. It seemed like their family's talents were declining until this girl was recognized as the genius of the century. The boy has a dumbfounded look as people already acknowledge her as a future grandmaster. Meanwhile, Xu Xian is just amazed that new people keep showing up. In the middle of an arena surrounded by statues, our protagonist comments on the sheer scale of everything. The explainer says that each of those statues contains divine power and keeps the demons inside the cave sealed. Our boy then asks which cave he should enter. The guy explains that you're supposed to measure your strength at the front and then enter the cave assigned to you. If you're in the first realm, you enter the first cave. If you're in a second realm, guess which cave you go to. That's right, and so on. Our protagonist asks if Miss Zhao is going into the second realm cave then. But in reality, she's entering the third realm cave. Meanwhile, Xu Xian is still passively gaining experience from Qinfang cooking and Yunshu writing books. One of the guards thinks it's wrong to send the girl into that cave, but another comments that he has no idea how talented she is. She perfectly inherited the bloodline and could easily take down a high-level demon. Even among all the disciples this year, she stands out. While our boy is impressed, the guy behind him tells him not to get any ideas because the two of them are only allowed to enter the basic cave, until someone behind them suddenly announces that Xu Xian will also be going into the third round cave. Wu Chang'an freaks out, saying that's way too dangerous. It's basically sending the boy to his death, which is insane. But the guard is already reaching for his sword, asking if he's really going against the orders of this place. At that moment, our boy says there's no need to attack his friend. Hell go. The others watch him walk forward, commenting that it looks like they're trying to get him killed. Zhao Yuhui, seeing him enter alongside her, knows that the boy is as good as dead. She even says they should start preparing his death certificate to send to his family. Inside the cave, a massive rat is waiting, wielding a sword in its hand. The rat warns another one with a spear that he smells a human in the first realm and tells him to send a weak demon. However, what they didn't know was that Xu Xian was hiding comfortably, using one of the scrolls that our dear Youngshu had made for him. He then opens his system, which is packed with food that Qinfang made, and starts boosting his attributes. My friend, he's been there for 4 days just eating, and he's already increased his attack, defense, and spirit by 50%. That was the limit he could gain from food. At that moment, the system notifies him that for Qinfang and Yunshu to level up, they need high-quality materials. Our boy realizes that his days of relaxing are over. He's going to have to take action. But he doesn't want to start fighting yet because some strong demons are nearby, so he decides to wait until they leave. Invisible but still fishing, he decides to gain some experience while waiting, until a rat senses something and launches an attack in that direction. Someone blocks it, and it turns out this whole situation involves Zhao Yuhui. The rat questions why his comrade is defending this human. The moment he sees her glowing eyes and the little rat caught in hypnosis, he realizes she must have some kind of bloodline ability. But it's already too late. He takes a strike to the back. The sword is pulled and the body collapses to the ground. At that moment, an entire army appears in front of her. But Zhao Yuhui looks excited, saying it's time for the dance. A rat looks at another, and suddenly, they start fighting each other. Moments later, corpses are scattered everywhere. She remarks that dealing with second realm creatures is way too easy. That's when someone behind her says that, in that case, it's time to test her. It's the Mole brothers, level 2 bosses. In an instant, one is already on her back, saying that their leg movements are far beyond what she can keep up with. She tries to activate her bloodline ability, but the rats keep dodging and tell her it won't work on them. A flurry of cuts follows, and from the looks of it, the girl has actually taken some real damage. Man, I thought she was hurt, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. Her head is literally floating in the rat's hand. He boasts about his victory, but she just laughs and asks if he really thought she was dead. Man, even I was fooled by the girl's jinjutsu. This guy ended up killing his own friend. And standing beside him, she says it was naive to think her bloodline ability wouldn't work just because he was blind. Enraged, the guy lunges at her again, swearing to kill this damn woman. A series of cuts slash through her body, and the rat celebrates, saying he's faster than her bloodline. But she just smiles and tells him it was pointless. His body, covered in cuts, is suddenly completely shredded. She then continues walking through the cave and finds herself at a river. On the other side, something is waiting for her. It's the Wolf Lord, the ruler of this place and a third-round beast. The monster comments that she must be the so-called genius girl, but she's not the one he was sent to kill. She's confused by this. He was sent to kill someone. She never imagined that the very association tasked with killing demons would start colluding with them. The Wolf Lord begins summoning a spear, saying that it doesn't matter. Now he's just interested in seeing the power of the so-called genius of the century. Yui pulls down her bandana, Gojo style, and declares that she's skilled at taking down high-level demons. The guy scoffs and says they'll see about that before, in an instant, skewering a turtle and nearly slicing her neck. She quickly retreats, knowing that if not for the automatic activation of her death substitute ability, she would have died. What she doesn't understand is why her spiritual energy isn't working. She removes her bandana and calls for her demon tiger. The moment it appears, it immediately launches an attack at the Lord. He acknowledges that she's impressive. Most people at her level would already be dead. But as he approaches, he warns that none of this changes anything because in the end she's going to die just the same. She activates her bloodline ability, commanding him to stop. But she realizes that the wolf is still advancing and wonders why nothing is working. He swings the spear again, and the tiger barely manages to save her. An explosion erupts in front of her, and the Lord remarks that it's impressive how even in its humanoid form, that creature is still so strong. They continue exchanging blows, and the cave begins collapsing from the intensity of their fight. Then the boss backs off and says he's tired of warm-ups. It's time to get serious. He unleashes the serpent spear attack, the weapon slithering like a snake toward its target. Yui's summon seems to be holding its ground, even counterattacking. But just as its paw is about to strike, it suddenly stops. The spear didn't pierce it, but it wrapped around like a rope. And with that, the Wolf Lord cast a spell, telling it to die. From the amount of debris and the blood-red explosion, I'm pretty sure it didn't make it out alive. Yui instantly turns and starts running. As much as it's a disgrace for the century's genius to flee like this, she has no choice. Even the strongest creature she could summon was utterly insignificant in front of this guy. But then someone blocks her path. The wolf asks where she thinks she's running and warns that leaving won't be so easy. Then he attacks her, telling her to prepare for death. The spear is coming straight for her face when suddenly a spark flashes. A strange fish falls right in front of her. The Wolf Lord comments that this creature should be in the western region, so why is it here? He looks to the side and sees that apparently another expert has arrived. It's our boy, chilling as usual, telling him not to worry too much, he's just a simple fisherman. Outside, the smoke begins to stir and people can feel that someone is emerging. From within the purple energy, a single step echoes. It's Zhao Yuhui, completely unharmed. Everyone murmurs in shock. The genius of the century actually survived this challenge. Meanwhile, the guards are convinced that their plan was brilliant and that the damned Xu Xian is dead. But then Yui leans toward the entrance and welcomes the great master, Xu Xian. The men are baffled. Since when does this arrogant girl kneel? Until one of them points and tells the captain to look. An overwhelming aura is emerging from the cave. Maybe a demon had broken the seal and was about to escape. Suddenly, the head of a wolf appears, and everyone turns pale. It's the third-round leader of that cave, the Wolf Lord. The commander immediately orders reinforcements, but that's when our boy realizes he forgot to take off his helmet. Of course, now he's standing there staring at everyone with his clueless expression. Meanwhile, Yuhui, in an interesting position, asks the master when her training will begin. Nobody understands why she's calling that weakling her master. The guard has no clue how this happened, but the real problem is that Xu Xian came out alive. What's worse, he has no idea what kind of cursed martial art he used to make Yuku protect him inside the cave. She was even humiliated to the point of calling him master. We then rewind 1 hour back inside the cave. Yui wonders if this guy is really in the first realm. Our boy dodges a spear thrust and nearly slices the little wolf. They keep exchanging countless blows, and the Wolf Lord admits that the boy is truly impressive. He was told the kid was in the first level, but this makes no sense. He prepares his spear, saying he'll have to use his final move. Here it comes, the wobbly spear lunging at our boy. And Yuhui knows that even her tiger couldn't survive this technique. But when the Wolf Lord looks again, all of his attacks had landed on a shell. And right above it, Xu Xian is coming down with his sword. Man, he barely managed to block in time. And now he's completely confused. How is a mere beginner fighting on equal footing? But our boy tells him he's completely wrong. He didn't spend 7 days fishing just to be on equal footing. A blue aura begins radiating from his sword, and the Wolf Lord is terrified. Just the pressure from the sword is crushing him against the ground. The monster can't understand how he's losing this fight to someone who should be weaker. But not only has our protagonist been getting stronger, he's also stacked with buffs. Suddenly, the wobbly spear comes to stab him from behind. But with his swift movement, he blocks it with his sword. Then he delivers a solid punch straight into the Wolf Lord's face, sending him flying. The beast crashes into the wall, and for a moment, the smoke reveals a human figure. He reverts back into a wolf and swears that he won't lose to a mere martial arts beginner. But Xiu Xian is already on his back, telling him he's just a beginner fisherman. And with that, the Wolf Lord's head is severed and rolls away. That's when Yuvi notices it wasn't a head, it was a mask. Our boy points the spear at him and says that it looks like he was right to suspect that he was human. He then demands to know why he was hiding in the cave pretending to be a creature. The guy explains that he stole an exorcism technique and was about to be captured. His only option was to flee into the cave, and he's been pretending to be a monster ever since. Our greedy boy immediately asks what technique that is and demands he hand it over. Before disappearing, the guy says it's useless for him to learn the technique. After all, it took him 5 years just to grasp the basics. His body then vanishes into smoke. Our boy not only obtained the spear, but also got a book that apparently allows him to transform into a creature. On top of that, he leveled up and received the Disciple Summon skill. It lets him summon someone from far away, but has a 1-hour cooldown. Yuhui tells him that the book is useless for him right now, since it's only effective for someone at the 4th level. If he tries to learn it now, he'll just waste time with no progress. But before even responding, he's already swallowed it whole. He glances at her, making her flustered. He looks at her feet, then at what really matters, and she immediately realizes she's being stared at inappropriately. But that's when our boy activates his new technique, turning into her. She jumps in shock. It looks like he mastered the technique in mere minutes. Our boy walks up to her and says that, from the looks of it, he's a little taller. Besides, this very important part is a little smaller. She instantly slaps him, telling him not to touch that. She also points out that his ugly face doesn't look anything like hers. Man, I gotta agree, he looks terrible. He reverts to his normal form and asks if she can control demons. She scoffs, saying of course she can. After all, she has the Xiao family's bloodline. Our boy then asks if she's interested in becoming his disciple. However, she refuses and says that even though he saved her, her family is revered by millions in the south. She won't let him take advantage of that and turns to leave, telling them to get moving. But then Xiu Xian asks if she's interested in summoning a phoenix. We then see a moment from before they entered the cave. The explainer tells our boy that the Xiao family expected her to control a phoenix by the time she turned 20. However, for that to happen, she would need to advance 7 or 8 realms in just 2 years, which was completely impossible. Back in the cave, she tells him that even though he mastered a technique in seconds, he shouldn't talk about summoning a phoenix like it's something easy. The summoning requires a perfect bloodline body, reaching the 10th realm and defeating a phoenix in the immortal realm. Xiu Xian says he knows an easier way. If she becomes his disciple, he will turn a chicken into a phoenix. She's shocked that he's actually saying this with a straight face. He insists, telling her that in 2 years she won't manage on her own. At least with him, she has a small chance. Yui gets lost in thought. She knows this weird kid reached the 3rd realm in just 7 days. Not to mention he just mastered a technique by eating a book. Maybe it's worth betting on him. Now back outside, she waves goodbye, saying she's excited to begin her training under him. Obviously, she became a new disciple specializing in taming. Back at the Yi family mansion, someone says they're doomed. The boy survived the 3rd realm and is now even friends with Yuhui. The mother tells her son to calm down, saying that even if he reached the 3rd realm, at most he could only kill a guard from the mansion. But the son insists that they can't just sit and wait. That's when the mother reveals that they have a way to obtain poison from an alchemist, perfect for slipping into his food to kill him. Yuba celebrates, saying that a quiet and precise plan is the best of all. Plus, before his death, they need to kill that cook right in front of him so that he dies in agony. Man, this guy is even more evil than I expected. And at that moment, a tiny mosquito lands on the mother's neck. You'd think it would just take a drop of blood, but no, it drains about 8 liters, turning her into a mummy. Her body collapses and the little monster moves to finish off the son. Now the poor guy is desperately screaming for help. The next day, people are looking at a sign and wondering what it says. Apparently, the whole town is now looking for the mosquito that killed Yi Ba and his mother. Everyone in the city has heard about the incident at the gate, saying it's surprising that the boy survived. Nearby, Yanshu is also listening as people talk about how Lady Zhao Yuhai is now our boy's disciple. She then writes him a message, letting him know the news has spread across the entire city. At that moment, she had reached the virtuous calligraphy talent. This allows her to decipher objects and analyze the magic of any scroll. Sitting on a tree trunk, our boy tells her to ignore all that, and asks if the spiritual bamboo he gave her was enough. She replies that they are much better, but it seems like Qinfeng hasn't been able to improve much. Our boy then receives his side mission to give Yunshu a body art scroll to decipher, and also to teach Qinfeng some fire-based skills to enhance her cooking. He knows that both of them are too weak to go on an expedition alone, so he'll have to start helping them out. On top of that, his main mission is to investigate Tyre Village, where people have been mysteriously freezing out of nowhere. With that, our boy jumps off his rooster and heads toward his missions. At the entrance of a gate, someone asks what he thinks he's doing there. Our boy, now officially part of the Demon Suppression Division, says he's there to investigate. The man apologizes and leads him inside. The guy then explains that 7 days ago, people started freezing in place as if possessed. He can't detect who's causing this, which means it's someone stronger than him. Our boy reaches out, saying he'll just try healing one of them. But the other man stops him immediately. If you touch the person, you become frozen too. Even indirect contact, like touching a stone or a branch that touched them, also gets you affected. They had already brought numerous cultivators, but no one could find a solution. At this rate, the entire village would be wiped out. The man says he'll let Xiuxian investigate, and at that moment, our boy activates the Disciple Summon, calling Liu Yunshu. The poor girl in the middle of her work suddenly pops out of nowhere beside him. She angrily tells him that next time he better warn her first. After all, she could have been in the bath. Our boy, looking all awkward, apologizes. Then he explains the situation in the village and asks for an analysis. She says she'll try and activates her scroll abilities. Man being his disciple is really paying off. She hasn't stopped evolving, and now she's loaded with talents. She then uses her deciphering skill. A description of the immobilization technique appears in her book. It's an advanced power that needs to be maintained at all times, and the further the caster is, the weaker it gets. Based on this, the person keeping up the effect must be at the top of that mountain. He says they're going up the mountain then, but Yunshu warns him that it's dangerous. The guy must be at a higher level. It would be better if he spent some time evolving like he always does. But our boy says that while he might have time to wait, the people in the village don't. At the top of the mountain, a bird watches someone sweeping the ground. It's a horned monk, a third-round grandmaster. He notices something, lifts his finger, and the bird suddenly freezes, just like the people in the village. It drops to the ground like a discarded piece of trash. At that moment, our boy appears. The monk recites Amitabha and asks what this honorable guest is doing at his temple. But Xiuxian simply tells him that he knows he's the one using the immobilization technique and orders him to disable it. The bald guy claims that Xiuxian is accusing the wrong person. But our boy immediately attacks, saying he just saw him using it. However, the horned monk activates a steel body technique, and Xiuxian's attack does nothing. The monk kicks him in the back and follows up with a punch. Our boy blocks the first hit, but is forced to defend against another. Now he's tanking everything, even stopping a knee strike. The bout gets intense, and the monk compliments him, saying that his skills are quite decent. Xiuxian spots an opening and throws a punch straight at the monk's head. But then, the guy activates the immobilization technique, and our boy is frozen midair. The monk prepares an attack and sends him flying into the temple walls. Boom, the walls shatter, and our boy is left buried under the rubble. A message pops up. Yunshu asks if he's okay. He replies that he is, since that attack was unavoidable anyway. He then explains that they first need to figure out the ability's cooldown, and second, he needed to buy time for her to copy the power. She's perched on a tree, saying she'll observe until she copies it, but he should fight in a more open space. Our boy then pulls out a green bean, a turtle recovery essence. Using materials from the cave, Qinfeng made it for him, but unfortunately, he only has 2 left. At that moment, the monk enters the hall, saying there's still much suffering left for him. He stomps on our boy, but Xiuxian had already turned into a pile of rocks. The monk didn't expect a kid like him to have a transformation technique. He anticipates an attack from behind and blocks it. But our boy grabs his arm and says that monks shouldn't curse. He tries to slam the monk into the ground, but just then, the monk turns into solid gold. The entire house explodes and someone leaps through the roof. It's the monk, impressed that he survived only because of his technique. Mid-air, Xiuxian is already closing in. He kicks, but again the monk turns into gold. Except this time, our boy slams him into the ground anyway. The monk gets up. Xiuxian is already coming at him again, but this time, the monk freezes him. He warns that no matter how good he is at martial arts, he can't win. He begins charging a black energy sphere, saying he's impressed the boy lasted this long. But strangely, Xiuxian is laughing. The monk scoffs, saying he's bold to be smiling at a time like this. He throws the sphere, the purple void thunder technique. Our boy's body is blasted through the entire mountain, leaving behind a crater. The monk looks to the sky and bids farewell to his fallen opponent. But Tixian, a leaf brushes against his arm. He turns, and Xiuxian is already behind him, holding the same sphere he just used. The monk demands to know how he's alive and how he's using his technique. But our boy sidesteps and shoves the attack right into his chest. Man, these fight scenes are pretty damn good. The monk is blasted through the temple, smashing against the far wall. He can't comprehend how a kid who just started fighting is already using a technique that took him years to learn. Then Xiuxian appears in front of him. The monk says that before he dies, he wants to know how this brat learned all his techniques so fast. A little earlier, we see that when our boy was running across the battlefield, he opened his inventory, and inside were several scrolls written by our beloved calligrapher. She was exhausted, but she had finally completed them all. The greedy bastard immediately shoved them all into his mouth. Say what you want, but this sleek fox really knows how to exploit his little system. Our boy then tells the monk to pay attention, because now he's going to explain the situation. He disappears, and before the monk can react, Xiuxian slams his fist into his chest, telling him to shut up and die. and that even if he can't use the thunder technique anymore, they'll beat him senseless until he loses consciousness. Our boy unleashes a flurry of punches while the monk writhes in agony. He weakly asks what he did wrong. The people of the village had suffered from wars and starvation for too long, so he was simply trying to free them from suffering. Apparently, when he used the immobilization technique, he even shed tears because he had to do it. And now he's awakening some crazy demon mode, saying that everything he did was for the greater good. Xiuxian is stunned. This guy can still move. The monk claps his hands together and activates a formation technique. A purple light expands across the entire temple, surrounding them in a barrier. It's the void prison. And our boy, looking up, can't believe this guy still has another technique. After the flash of light, the monk vanished right in front of him. The problem now was that Yunshu wouldn't be able to analyze anything inside, so he'd have to handle this on his own. From the top of the formation, a golden lightning bolt struck down, hitting the house. At the same time, our boy dodged to the side, activated steel body, and rushed toward the center. Suddenly, the energy ball opened an eye and transformed into a giant sun. Xiuxian realized it was a combination of the immobilization technique and the thunder technique. The poor guy got blasted onto the roof like trash. He rolled off, but at least he was still alive. The problem? The moment he moved again, he got frozen once more. It was like the monk's ability no longer had a cooldown. At that moment, the monk, now a full demon, was already coming in to crack his ribs. The attack landed clean, sending our boy flying again. What Xiuxian was trying to do was activate body hardening in the few seconds he had free. The issue was that 3 more energy spheres appeared around him. The poor guy knew that he wasn't even getting a second to breathe. Another devastating lightning strike rained down on him, and now the house was completely destroyed. From afar, Yunshu watched the storm of lightning, calling for her master. She was writing as fast as she could, telling him to hold on just a little longer. She was almost done. In the middle of the destruction, the monk stepped on Xiuxian's chest, mocking him. He taunted him, saying, "What happened to that laugh?" So our boy forced out a laugh just to mess with him. This infuriated the monk even more, who prepared a punch, saying he would immobilize him forever. But Xiuxian, our boy, activated a formation. In full Jujutsu Kaisen style, he expanded his own domain inside the monk's domain. The demon, completely confused, demanded to know how that was even possible. He had no idea how this brat was pulling this off, but he swore to kill him and steal his spiritual root. At that moment, all the energy spheres gathered into one massive sphere above Xiuxian. He smirked, asking if this was finally the final attack. The giant eye moved toward him, but he stood confidently, activating the freezing technique. That's when his aura exploded outward, freezing not just the attack, but the demon himself. The entire mountain was frozen. The monk couldn't understand how this was possible. Even his own formation had been frozen alongside everything else. And beyond that, he couldn't feel anything. All he could hear was the echo of his own thoughts. Meanwhile, Xiuxian was charging up a small energy sphere. Man, the references keep coming. The demon had no clue what the boy was preparing. He thought he could escape, or maybe even survive this. Well, buddy, you're about to find out. Because that attack just tore through him and split the sky itself. Half the mountain was wiped away. And I don't think he survived that one, my friend. The evil monk had been eliminated, and our boy advanced to level 4. Not only did he unlock all of the monk's techniques, but he also gained a new skill. When his disciples are nearby, he gets stronger. Vice versa, his disciples also grow stronger when he's around. Meanwhile, Qin Feng was sitting on a bridge, wondering why the master hadn't returned yet. As soon as he showed up, she rushed over, asking where Yunshu had gone. Our boy explained that she had already returned to the store, but he wanted to know why Qin Feng looked so nervous. She explained that the patriarch had returned. At the Yi Mansion in the main hall, our boy opens the door, and the moment he steps inside, he feels a murderous intent. Something was approaching him fast, and standing in front of the entrance, it was the patriarch. Xiuxian realized the old man was expanding his aura, testing him. And then the old man advanced forward confidently. Is this another reference? This time to Hunter x Hunter. The old man was impressed. It seemed that the rumors he had heard weren't lies. The boy truly had exceptional potential. Then the old man laughed, and suddenly, his killing intent disappeared completely. Our boy was already close to him, wondering why the intent to kill vanished so suddenly. The old man turned, spread his arms wide, and said, "Son, for a second, I completely forgot. Yeah, that's right, our protagonist is actually this guy's son." The old man smiled, saying how much Xiuxian had grown. He was so proud that he even wanted a hug, but Xiuxian was skeptical. What was with this sudden change in attitude? The father sat down, saying he had been watching his son's hard work. He asked him if he wanted gold, treasure, or maybe even a woman. But looking at the old man's smiling face, Xiuxian found it disturbing. This was a man whose wife and daughter had just recently died. Yet here he was smiling at his 20-year-old illegitimate son. He knew there was something behind all this. But if the old man was being so generous, then there was something he wanted. The scene changes. Our boy, as usual, is surrounded by beautiful women, while everyone stares in shock. Man, he must have made a big demand, because apparently he asked for an entire sect for himself. Qin Feng wants to know how he got so much money. He replies that he just borrowed a little from the family patriarch. Meanwhile, the old man is absolutely fuming. He said he would grant any wish, but the boy had completely emptied the castle's treasury. But while the old man was fuming with rage, our boy was sleeping peacefully. Not so peacefully, actually, because he woke up to someone shouting his name. He almost had a heart attack, and Kinfeng told him that someone was waiting at the gate. From the red outfit, you could already tell who it was. The healthiest disciple of them all, Yuhuai, who greeted her master with a cheerful wave. Xuxian noticed that unlike the other girls who started as beginners, she was already at the skilled level. He then pointed to the side, saying that room over there would be hers. Kinfeng asked what was in the box, and Yuhuai replied that it was a divine beast passed down through her family. She told her to take a look at the phoenix, and as soon as Kinfeng peered inside, a red eye was staring back at her. She jumped in fright, but of course, it was just a tiny bird. Yodi said it was still very young, but once it grew its flaming feathers, then she would believe it was a phoenix. Then she looked to the side, saw Yumshu, and realized there was another woman here. She turned to the master and said that he was truly oppressive. At that moment, a crow was flying overhead, and she used a technique to make it descend. The creature was engulfed in an aura and obeyed her instantly. It turned out to be a messenger pigeon, carrying a message from the Demon Suppression Division. Our girl told them she would stay home, take care of the birds, and chat with her sisters. The poor thing didn't even get a chance to go with our boy. His first mission was to go to the demon cavern and clear it out. On top of that, there was something there that would help Yuhai evolve her creatures. He realized that this time it was going to be an underwater battle, and luckily, he had a pill that would help him deal with it. After consuming it, he dived into the sea, and deep below he saw a gate where two fishmen were standing guard. A bait suddenly dropped in front of them, and one of them laughed, saying that humans were hilarious, always hunting in such primitive ways. But the other one couldn't resist and jumped to bite it, saying this one felt special. With that, the poor guy got yanked up and his friend rushed after him, calling him an idiot. When he surfaced, he saw our fisherman boy waiting for him. Our boy threw down another bait and the second fishman scoffed, saying he wasn't stupid enough to fall for the same trick. But too late, he got caught as well. Since our boy had leveled up his fishing talents so much, it was hard for creatures to resist his bait. As he made his way through the depths of the cavern, someone seemed to be watching him. We then cut to an hour earlier. A man told the protagonist's father that somehow, his son always managed to survive. The father told him not to worry, he would handle it. Not only did this man want to kill our protagonist, but he also wanted to steal his talent. Meanwhile, below the water, our boy was eager to test out everything he had learned from that monk. The problem? He couldn't see a single demon anywhere. He kept swimming until he touched a mountain, and suddenly, it exploded out of nowhere. A massive smoke cloud formed underwater, and it really looked like our boy had been seriously injured. Wait, was that a tiny arm floating there? From the looks of it, got disconnected, and now he was drowning. At that moment, a crab grabbed his leg, laughing and saying that this was way too easy. But it was a trap. The creature immediately sensed something was wrong and ordered everyone to retreat. But it was already too late. Crabs were coming from every direction. From above, our boy used the monk's freezing technique. Taking advantage of their immobilization, he activated orb expansion, and a flash of light swept through the entire ocean. The once crowded cavern was wiped clean, and he kept gaining experience points. Then suddenly, a water bullet shot straight toward him. He barely dodged it in time. Looking down, he saw that the lobster boss had survived the explosion. He commented that this guy's power reminded him of the weapons from his old world, so it would be very useful to learn. He tried freezing the boss again, but the lobster created a shield and immediately rushed to the end of the tunnel. The creature was using a multi-water cannon to keep its distance. Meanwhile, Xuxian was throwing purple thunder orbs to try and finish him off. The explosions kept collapsing the mountain as our boy chased after him. But once again, he sensed something approaching from the side. He dodged, looked up, and there was the lobster, waiting. He realized that none of his attacks were reaching this thing. Before he could strike, he had to close the distance. He jumped toward it, dodging multiple bullets along the way. Finally, it looked like he was about to reach the lobster. But once again, it distanced itself. At this rate, he knew he wouldn't catch up. So he pulled out his spear. He aimed, preparing to throw it Spartan style, and launched it straight at the lobster. The creature sensed something approaching, but it was too late. The spear was already inches from its head. It tried to dodge, but its shoulder got slashed open. Still, the creature scoffed, saying that this wound was nothing, and the boy was too slow. Until Xuxian activated the extension ability. The lobster thought the boy was about to launch another attack and said that nothing would work. What he didn't expect was that the attack was coming from behind this time, and the spear pierced straight through his spine. As he was thrown back, he realized that damn staff could extend on its own. Right in front of him, Xuxian was still standing, holding a thunderbolt in his hands. The lobster's vision flashed. Another explosion erupted and smoke filled the water. Blood flowed through the sea, and our boy had successfully eliminated his enemy. However, at the same time, he had been cut and was bleeding. He didn't understand how, since he had gained experience before being wounded, meaning the beast was already dead. He collapsed onto the ground and someone spoke. They had been waiting for this moment. He turned his head, and you can already imagine who it was. His father, the patriarch of the family, stood there saying that he had been waiting for Thiz. Now he would finally obtain the talent he had always desired. His name was Yi Kai, and our boy commented that he didn't sense anything. So how did he suffer a fatal attack? The man revealed that he possessed a secret technique called double kill strike. Yeah, sounds like a game skill, my friend, but whatever. Basically, it's a technique that links two people. When one suffers a lethal blow, the other suffers it too. However, he was impressed that the boy didn't die from the monster's attack. His body was truly durable. Xiuxian smirked, saying that now he understood. Just like the monk, the old man was furious. How was this dying brat still laughing? The patriarch prepared a palm technique, saying that once he stole all of Xiuxian's talent, that smile would disappear. His hand surged forward toward our protagonist. Blood splattered, and the old man grinned, saying that he had finally gotten what he wanted. But when he looked at his fingers, they were embedded in the ground. The boy's body had turned into a stone statue. He realized his mistake and turned, but it was already too late. Xiuxian was right behind him with a finger pointed at his forehead. The old man trembled, realizing that the boy not only knew his sealing technique, but also his shape-shifting ability. Xiuxian simply said that they were just two cheap tricks, but they seemed to work pretty well on him. The old man demanded to know how he escaped the curse. He thought to himself that he was still stronger, so as long as he could break free from this technique, he could finish him off. Trying to buy time, he said that if he was going to die, he at least wanted an explanation. But his expression changed. He asked, "What do you think you're doing?" Xiuxian was already charging up his bowling ball-sized energy sphere, telling him that there was no point in trying to stall. The old man claimed that Xiuxian was heartless for killing his own father. But Xiuxian replied that he was a man from another world who had worked himself to death. He had been reincarnated and didn't want to go through that again. The father was vaporized. Not only did our boy absorb the remnants of the old man's power, he also learned the lobster's technique. Next scene, back at the sect. The lobster was laid out on the table. Qinfeng asked if all of that was really for her. Xiuxian said yes, but she got to share it with Yuhai. And if they needed more, he had plenty in the system. Jealous, Qinfeng pouted, saying that Yuhui just got here, so why did she have to share the good stuff? At that moment, the ever-healthy Yuhui arrived. Our boy asked how the chicken was doing, but she seemed discouraged. He then suggested that maybe feeding it monster meat would help, so they offered some lobster to the little chick, and everyone was curious to see his reaction. The talent that Yuhui unlocked upon becoming his disciple doubled the growth rate of her beasts when they consumed spiritual ingredients. A golden glow erupted. Wait, was this thing really turning into a phoenix already? Ah, not quite. It was now a spiritual pet, but still only at the first realm, so it hadn't fully evolved yet. Strangely, Yuhui smiled, saying that, as she had promised, it was becoming a phoenix. But Qinfeng, irritated, said that it still just looked like a fancy chicken. They started arguing, with Yuhai insisting it was a phoenix, and Qinfeng threatening to take away the chicken's food. Meanwhile, our boy realized something. He was just entering the 5th realm, and his disciples weren't giving him as much experience anymore. Just doing basic daily tasks wasn't enough. That's when the system announced that it had unlocked the mission system. Now he could assign them missions, and whenever they completed them, he would gain experience. He got an idea, and you could already tell it was an evil plan. A golden light filled the area, and all of his disciples learned a summoning technique. He explained that now they could complete missions based on their professions and skills, and they could also call for him in emergencies. Yunshu asked if he wasn't going with them. He said no because he was too busy, and left the women to do all the work. This absolute Giga Chad. What a menace. Next scene. He was climbing a staircase, thanking someone for the information he received in the cavern. If not for the intel, he wouldn't have known about his father's attack. Man, it was Wu Chengen, that guy who explains everything. Wu said that he had kept a close eye on everything that was happening, and managed to predict it. Our girl wanted to know why this guy was helping him, and he revealed that he wasn't very talented. His aptitude was weak, and he didn't want to work too hard. That's why he had always looked for someone reliable to depend on. And the moment that the proud daughter of the Xiao family became Xiuxian's disciple, he knew that our boy was a solid investment. At least our boy respected his honesty. Then we cut to a few days ago. Inside a cave, Wu Chengen was completely exhausted, clutching a sword in his hands. He wondered why he had been sent to patrol this mountain if there was such a powerful beast here. In front of him stood a level 3 black bear. Man, the boy got smashed into the wall like a noodle. What was that? The massive bear was being controlled by Yuhui, who called out to her master, saying she had completed the mission. He praised her, saying that with this, the biggest informant for their enemy had been eliminated. She was curious, wanting to know why he had been summoned to the Demon Suppression Division. Apparently, she had already asked him about it, and now in the present, the explainer said that even he didn't know what was happening. But one thing was certain, he would find out once he spoke with the higher-ups. Our boy looked up and asked if they were joking. How was he supposed to climb that place with this flimsy piece of paper? The guy explained that this was exactly why people were summoned there, because very few could actually pass the trial. Our boy activated a foot technique, took 2 steps on the ground, and was already nearly at the top. Apparently, when you step with energy, the paper reflects and strengthens itself. However, one of the symbols turned gold, and as he approached, it started moving toward him. Suddenly, a spiritual hammer nearly sliced him in half. Man, this was like a mix of medieval traps and cultivation techniques. And not just that, a barrage of swords was already heading straight for him. He activated his immobilization technique along with steel skin. The attack slammed directly between his hands and aura surged into the sky. The problem was that these swords followed a tracking technique. They wouldn't stop. He wondered if he could freeze them with the immobilization technique, but when he tried it, it had no effect. An explosion burst in the sky, and one of the swords nearly pierced his eye. But then, someone appeared behind him and, from the looks of it, stopped the attack. A man named Wang Sizai told him that he was way too reckless, and that he hadn't even had time to go pick him up. He deactivated the formation, explaining that these seals were made to stop level 5 demons. Our boy asked if he had disabled the rest of the seals, since there were tons more ahead. But Wang Sizai placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "That won't be necessary." He leaped into the air, grabbed our boy, and threw him straight onto the island. Our boy landed with his face all distorted, realizing that an 8th realm cultivator was on a completely different level. But then, mid-air, out of nowhere, a black rift opened and red energy spread out. A minotaur-like creature emerged from inside. That oppressive aura. It was the same feeling he had when he first saw Yui. When the energy touched his body, it felt like stone grinding against his bones. The monster lunged to grab him, but Wang Sizai pulled him away and took him upward. At the top, Wang Sizai commented that it was strange for a portal like that to be so close to this place. But our boy snapped at him, telling him to stop thinking out loud and handle the monster. The beast prepared an attack, and even though our boy knew he stood no chance, he refused to just stand still. He rated his technique, saying that right now, he was just a grasshopper trying to stop a cart. That's probably a Chinese proverb. But Wang Sizai simply grabbed the Minotaur's power and crushed it in his palm. Our boy was shocked. He did it without using a technique. And the guy explained that using a 3rd level technique in this place was like an ant trying to move a tree. Take another proverb for yourself. At that moment, the Minotaur's massive attack was heading straight for them, on the verge of detonating. But Wang Sizai extended his hand, created a magic circle, and expanded a barrier. Even so, the attack struck in full force and began expanding. But this man had swag, I swear. He casually spun his wrist, sending the attack flying away. Our boy watched in awe as the attack soared across the mountains. The one who wasn't happy was a poor little rabbit, who had just lost his entire forest to that explosion. Obviously, the place was left with a massive crater, and our boy couldn't believe such power. A single explosion had turned countless mountains into dust. It was worse than a nuclear bomb. Trying to use his tiny attack to stop that was completely ridiculous. At that moment, the Minotaur retreated into the rift and disappeared. Our boy celebrated, at least happy that the great beast had backed off. While Wang Sizai wondered if the monster had only appeared to test the Demon Suppression Division's power. Sometime later, inside the main house, our boy was walking alone down the hallways. That mysterious person told him to come alone, but the place was completely empty. Until a golden light appeared in front of him, and our boy stopped in his tracks, staring. She was holding a fan, wearing a crown on her head. Would she in the future work honestly under our boy? Her name was Li Wan, and she was the Empress of Long Wan. No idea which realm she belonged to. Being a gamer, he immediately noticed her name was Orange. That meant she was definitely a force to be respected. We then cut to a conversation with someone else, where he asked about this whole dragon tongue thing. Yang Chun explained that the most powerful people possessed a bloodline that granted them the language of dragons. Our boy asked if it was really that strong, and she explained that this bloodline alone had changed the outcome of countless wars. When someone with this power speaks, all creatures before the meal. At that moment, Lei Wan asked why he, after meeting her, had not yet knelt. No, our boy felt the pressure. He dropped to his knees instantly, almost smashing his face against the ground. This was unlike anything he had ever experienced, far beyond even that demon from another dimension. Lei Wan then commented that it was impressive how he had awakened his talents despite being so old. He had walked his entire life in emptiness, only to make his breakthrough in the last year, and that was why she had heard his name. Our boy, feeling awkward, downplayed it, saying he was just an ordinary person and didn't deserve recognition. She then said that he was humble and told him to stand up. She asked if it was true that Miss Yui of the Zhao family had accepted him as her master. On one of her missions as Empress, she had visited the Zhao family, and at that time they had rejected all potential masters. That was why she wanted to know how he had managed to do something like that. Xuxian simply said that he had promised her he would help her raise a phoenix. The Empress, excited, stood up and said that now that was interesting. Then, she ordered him to prepare himself to hear her decree. He would be made an assistant to commanders of the Demon Suppression Division and, in addition, the governor of Yizhou. He accepted the honor with gratitude, and she said she was interested in seeing what he would achieve in this world. Later that same day, someone asked her why Her Majesty was favoring someone like him. A golden dragon appeared behind her, saying that the boy was suspected of having killed his brother, his mother, and even his father. Clearly, he wasn't a good person. However, the Empress replied that there was no concrete evidence. And besides, if he hadn't done something like that after being oppressed for so many years, he would have ended up just like her. It seemed that her older brother had stolen a part of her talent, and that was why now when demons attacked, she had to be cautious when taking action. Because once the creatures discovered that she no longer had the strength she once did, they would surely invade this place. In front of a kilometer-long wall, our boy found the location much more peaceful than expected. This place looked like a city with a ridiculously high GDP. His friend beside him asked, "What the hell is GDP?" Traveling with Master Xu was truly a daily lesson. Our boy told him not to call him Master and to just refer to him as always. The friend said he understood, but then asked where the disciples he had sent out were. Our girl explained that each of them was currently focused on their cultivation. Yi Qinfeng was standing in front of the demon boar cave. Extending her hand, she knew that this was a sealed cavern, but with her master's decree, she was allowed to enter. With that, the seal in front of her dissolved and the door began to open. Man, that boar was right in her face already. The beast lunged in for a bite, but the girl was a knife expert and slashed across its mouth. Seeing several more in front of her, she commented that they had been running low on pork recently, which made this the perfect chance to restock. The battle was so intense that not long after, the pig was trembling and running away. But then a massive force struck it, sending it flying. The boss of the cave, Zhu Feng, stepped forward, calling his subordinates ridiculous for having lost to a single girl. And slowly, Yi Qinfeng approached him. He said that using his subordinates as ingredients was going too far. Yi Qinfeng laughed, saying that even the boss already knew what these creatures were good for. The boar roared, saying that he would rip open her abdomen, tear out her heart, and make it into an appetizer. At that instant, he lunged at her, but she dodged and sliced across his leg. Her blade skills were precise, cutting right as Achilles tendon. But he stayed standing, swung for another attack, and shattered the ground. However, he had already taken another cut on the shoulder and called her a damn fly